After a sluggish start, things are really starting to come together for the Chargers in the offseason, and they can put the cherry on top by trading for Dallas Goedert.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Droegemeier, and we've been covering the Chargers now for 9 seasons, and this is our 7th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you to the everydayers out there for making us your first listen, especially during the offseason. We appreciate you guys. If you want to make sure that you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Daniel, the Chargers have done a good job of adding some protection up front for Justin Herbert. They also went out and got a familiar face with Mike Williams as a ex-receiver for him. But you know what would make it just that much better? Getting him a legitimate pass-catching tight end. And it just so happens that there is one available and could easily be attained, which is Dallas Goedert of the Philadelphia Eagles. It just seems like something that really makes way too much sense, and I understand there's some injury issues, but that's a deal that the Chargers absolutely should be able to get done. If they want him, they can definitely have him. And then we're going to get into some free agency awards. We're going to talk about some of the most underrated players, some of the biggest wild cards, and then talk about some of the players that got away.
Yeah, there were a couple of them. There always is during free agency, but when you have $90 million going into it to spend, it does hurt a little bit more. But today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. And David, we have been talking about the Chargers potentially adding a tight end in any kind of way that they can this offseason to really cement the improvements on offense that we need to see for them. And it's not often that there are tight ends that are as available as Dallas Goedert is, because, I mean, we're talking about weeks ago at this point, Josina Anderson is putting out that the Eagles are holding out hope for at least a 4th-round pick for tight end Dallas Goedert and a potential trade, even if said pick was from later years, like 26 or 27. Obviously, they haven't gotten that offer yet. Even a future 4th-round pick nobody's offered to this point, or you'd assume the deal would be done. But, David, for that price and for a significant upgrade, specifically just in the pass-catching department for an offense that really got exposed in that playoff loss, this feels like it just makes way too much sense.
Absolutely, it does. I mean, the Philadelphia Eagles are basically saying, hey, come and get him. He is available, and like we are really not even too concerned about when you give us the pick. It doesn't have to be this year. It doesn't even really have to be next year. Like, we will absolutely unload this contract. Just come and take him off our hands. And so for a guy here who, is, about to be 30 years old, has, a lot of success in the league, has several seasons of 600 plus receiving yards, and is a legitimate pass catching tight end, it seems like, somebody who fits exactly what the Chargers are looking for.
It does, and I just think that if you're saying, well, why trade for him, why give up draft capital for him, I mean, it's just a for sure thing. It doesn't stop you from drafting a tight end, and it must be nice to be the Eagles who can just say, we're not really worried because our roster is loaded. Just give us a pick whenever. And obviously, that's what they're putting out as a 4th-round pick. It probably means he could be had for a 5th-round pick, maybe even a compensatory 6th-round pick, and we'll even give it to you this year. But the reason they should want him is just because when he's on the field, he produces. I mean, last year, 2nd out of 48 tight ends with at least 25 targets and yards per route run. When he's out there, he's getting more than anyone else besides one player. Good hands, 5.3% drop rate in 7 seasons. Tied for 6th in the NFL last year at his current age in yards after the catch per catch. He's giving you something besides just the catch itself. He's getting you more yards after it, which I obviously love. And I think just would be a great fit for specifically what the Chargers need. Like, you have primary blockers and Will Dissly and Tucker Fisk, guys who can do that specifically well. But the biggest thing that hurt the Chargers last year was Will Dissly was fine against zone coverage. He was terrible against man coverage. And that is something that Dallas Goedert absolutely kills it against. He had the highest yards per route run against man coverage by anyone in the NFL. No minimum targets needed, just the best against that. And it wasn't really that close. 5th highest receiving grade overall. If it's what they need, well, if it's the timeline of where they're at right now, trying to kind of make a leap in year 2 under Jim Harbaugh, and he still plays at such a high level when he's out there.
And I like what he did in the playoffs as well. It's something that I think does deserve a little bit of notoriety. I mean, he came back and had 17 catches for 215 yards and a touchdown in those 4 playoff games. So he was productive. He was a major part of the offense. And I think, looking at what the Chargers did in their playoff game last year against Houston, man, a Dallas Goedert in that offense to take a little bit of attention away from Ladd McConkey to be able to attack the middle of the field, how effective and how impactful could that have been, right? I mean, just imagining another person that could occupy some attention and you have to pay attention to because he can beat man-to-man coverage, as Daniel just talked about. And the only person on the team right now that can routinely do that is Ladd McConkey. So to add another person that can do that at such a high level would really make it so much more effective and deadly for the Chargers offense and for defenses to not be able to just try to eliminate Ladd.
Yeah, and good luck, right? Even if you try to. But I think the thing is I'm glad that you kind of took it from the perspective of not just as a tight end, but just outside, even in your receiving core with guys outside of Ladd McConkey. You don't have guys that are man beaters in those coverages. That's why Mike Williams, made a lot of sense too, because you can have perfect coverage on him and it doesn't matter sometimes, man or zone, right? But I do think that playoff run, leading the team in receptions and receiving yards was awesome, especially after he missed some time to come back and do that. And I just think that at this point, it's add whatever receiving threats, whatever weapons that you can. Maybe it's not the big name receiver that you would want them to trade for. It's not DK Metcalf, right? But it's someone that can add to your offense when he's out there. And if you want to even lean into, those 2 tight end sets, you would actually have 2 legitimate players in Will Dissly and obviously Dallas Goedert to put out there. Doesn't mean you can't take a tight end for the future, but this fits the timeline for what you need right now. And I think when you're looking at why the Chargers wouldn't do it, I mean, the biggest thing that stands out is just because of the injuries. And last year, missed games, came back in the playoffs, was their leading receiver. So he was still able to come back and contribute. But that has to be the biggest red flag here and the biggest reason the Chargers could potentially not want to send even a day 3 pick for him, which seems to make so much sense.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it, and the unfortunate truth is he hasn't played a full season since his rookie season in 2018. So that's, for a team and for an organization under Jim Harbaugh and Joe Ortiz, who clearly put a lot of emphasis on durability and availability, that might be something that just kind of shies them away from Dallas Goedert on the principle of the type of players that they want in their building.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that the one thing that makes you feel a little bit better about it, because I don't think that there's really a ton of silver lining to, a player who's averaged on the last 3 seasons, missing 5 games per season. The nice thing is although he would be your primary receiving option at the tight end position, we know that Will Dissly can do it. Do you want Will Dissly to be your best option 17 games a year? No, you don't. But can he do that for 3 or 4 games if Dallas Goedert has to miss that time?
Sure.
Absolutely. I think he can. And I think he showed it last year when he basically shattered every single receiving kind of, record that he had. I mean, he was a much better
had
receiver.
a signature play too, Daniel, with his little tight end screen.
Which is funny because when I was looking up the tight ends and then yards after the catch per catch, who was right behind Dallas Goedert, who ranked 5th this year? It was Will Dissly, it was specifically because of just that one play that was the unstoppable play. I'm not saying get rid of Will Dissly. I'm not saying stop running that screen because it worked seemingly almost single time. Ah, man, it was crazy. But I think that just as far as this trade goes and the reason to do it, I think there's a lot of reasons to do that. Especially because if you're talking about draft flexibility, you could still take one on day 1 or 2, but you don't feel like you have to, and you'll have legitimate options.
And the money's not a concern either, Daniel. Contract's $1.125 million base salary. Like that is absolutely nothing. The Chargers could take that on, no problem.
Yeah, it definitely wouldn't be for cap reasons. They have, still a ton of effective cap space they can use. I mean, if you're nitpicking, not a huge red zone threat, only has hit 5 touchdowns in a season one single time. 42 for 496 yards that he had last season, 42 catches, that is, 2 touchdowns. Not going to blow you away. But at the same time, you don't need him to be the best tight end in the league. If you get him to just be what he has been, right, he's going to be such a gigantic upgrade, and you still have Will Dissly, you can be there for the dirty work as well. So I think it would make a ton of sense. Something I think that would really put a bow on the start of free agency and the start of this offseason for the Chargers. But we do want to give out some free agent awards, a chance to kind of touch back on some of the most important things the Chargers have done so far, including the most impactful free agent they've signed and also the most Jim Harbaugh free agent they've signed, and more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, though, if you're trying to scale your business, it requires the right expertise at the right time. And with Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives you business flexibility by connecting them with the top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need an extra hand for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and, most importantly, affordable. It's all about finding the right talent, and that's what Upwork can help you with, because if you need help with a marketing campaign, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivered incredible results. You can also post your job for free, and it's super simple. And within a day, you could have multiple qualified candidates to choose from. And instead of hiring full-time, Upwork helps you find affordable top-tier freelancers to scale my business efficiently. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today. I also need to tell you guys about Gametime. Imagine watching your favorite team live. If you haven't done it and been to SoFi Stadium, I can tell you it's a real experience for sure, and it's a crazy stadium. But there's nothing like experiencing a big game in person, and that is so true. And that's what you can get with Gametime, because not only can you get it, you know you're getting the best price, and you also get Gametime picks, which is curation that makes it easier to find better value for tickets to sports, concerts, comedy, and theater. Whatever you're looking for, Gametime can get you tickets. And I just checked on the Gametime app, and it's always great to look through it because you could find whatever your plans are going to be for the weekend. This weekend, got my wife Kelsey Ballerini tickets through Gametime, got her really good seats, and I love that you can see exactly what your view is going to be from the seat that you pick. And you know you're always getting the best deal with the Gametime guarantee. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, David. Well, I did want to kind of get back into the free agents that have been signed so far, because it was such a flurry over the last few weeks. Even if it wasn't the biggest names people were looking for, there were so many guys that maybe we didn't get to go as in depth, or kind of just they signed a guy, we talked about it and haven't really talked again about it. So I wanted to do kind of a little free agent award show today.
Yeah.
Just as far as the guys that we thought are going to, like in this case, be the most impactful player. And that's, for me, Mekhi Becton, who gets the award for the most impactful free agent signing. And I think it has a lot to do with just how much it kind of fits what you want to see the Chargers improve in, how much of a singular improvement over the guy that he is going to replace last season, and also just the sheer size, the thought of Najee Harris running behind him, the thought of Joe Alt and him linking up to just be a truly insanely gigantic right side that they now have. For a lot of different reasons, to me, that is the most impactful external free agent signing for the Chargers by far.
Yeah, that right side of the Chargers offensive line is looking like the Looney Tunes Monstars over there.
Yeah.
Just a couple of absolutely mountainous beasts on the right side with Mekhi Becton and Joe Alt. But yeah, it's such a, most impactful and maybe biggest improvement too, right? You look at the overall stats here with Trey Pipkins being your primary right guard, 6 sacks, 29 pressures allowed, 63.7 run block grade, 49.7 pass block. And then you go to Mekhi Becton, a 75.2 overall grade there, 63.6 pass block. So about a 15-point increase there, and a 74.7 run block. So not only was he better as a pass protector, he was much better as a run blocker. And for Mekhi Becton, who really transitioned and switched to guard and only has 1 year at guard, he learned and picked it up very, very quickly. 3 of his sacks, basically all of them, were given up in the first 4 games. After that, he really settled in, really got comfortable in the position, and really looked like he's playing the position he was always meant to play, which is more inside, more limited movements, and you got to see him really excel, blow people really out of the way, and allow Saquon Barkley to go running wild for a historic campaign.
Yeah, and got better, to your point, throughout the regular season. I mean, yeah, didn't allow a sack after those first 4 weeks. And also, in his last 5 games, he allowed one pressure or less in 4 of them. So you love to
That'll
see that
play.
improvement. If you're talking about internal guys that the Chargers had to bring back, we know it's Khalil Mack and what he means to this
No
defense.
doubt.
He was still, right there with Derwin James is the best player you have on that side of the ball, and you didn't have anyone to replace him. So that was gigantic. Let's go to the most underrated signing here, David. And I think there's a couple guys this to go to, honestly. But the guy we ended up going with Dante Jackson. And to me, what I would call this is you're giving Jesse Minter, a dude who had 5 interceptions last season, even with the flaws that he has, and you're going to put him in the same defensive backfield as a guy who had 4 interceptions in Tarheeb still. So I think the nice thing about this, and the reason it's underrated to me, is because they don't even necessarily need their starting outside corner, which really tells me that Minter should have the ability to fully deploy him the way he wants.
You get to mix and match, man. You get to have kind of a weapon on the defensive side to be able to go and get the football and take the football away and give it back to your offense. Like, those are impactful plays. Those are plays that change the whole tenor of a football game. And we saw it with Tarheeb Still with his interceptions against Atlanta. He completely changed that game and took it over with his ability to take the football away and to be able to score with the football with that pick six. And for Dante Jackson, he's kind of a zone coverage specialist. He has 13 interceptions and 36 passes defensed in zone coverage in his career. That's from Daniel Popper of The Athletic. And that, just goes to show you. And, when you consider the Chargers defense and what they play and how they, like to play scheme-wise, they play more zone coverage than anybody in the NFL, at least last year under Jesse Minter. And after that success that they had last year, there's absolutely no reason to change it. So getting somebody who excels playing in the type of defense that you play mostly is just smart business. So I can see why this is most underrated. And if he's able to get, another 4-5 interceptions, then this move could look a whole lot better for the type of money that he is scheduled to make.
Yeah, and this could have been the biggest wild card too, which we'll get into the next segment. But because it's a huge bounce back, guy for the Chargers where you need him to play better. I mean, even with 5 picks, he ranked 196 out of 223 corners in coverage last year. That's man and zone. Definitely he was better in zone, and his passer rating allowed was 6th in the NFL, minimum 25 targets at 66.9. Like, that'll play. But there's some disconnect there. The biggest thing is if you can get this dude to tackle, the upside is there. And I think the reason it's most underrated is because it's such a low risk. You didn't have to pay very much for it. And there could be such a high upside. And if it doesn't work out, you don't even need him to start. Most underrated internal guy, Elijah Molden, to me. I mean, getting it done early, such a big piece of the back
Bar
end,
none.
I thought was awesome. But there's one more we want to give away here, David, and that is the most Jim Harbaugh signing. And there's only really one player it could be.
I mean, you know who it is. It is obviously Najee Harris, the big, bruising, physical, durable running back from Pittsburgh, coming from that, blue collar, type of
Culture,
kind of
for sure.
Culture, bring your work pail, lunch pail to work type of dude. A guy who posts 17 games every single season, 250 plus carries, sometimes 300 carries every season. This guy, he produces. He's on the field. He is a 1,000-yard runner, and, he does it the old-fashioned way. He doesn't necessarily run away from you. He runs over you or through you. That's what Najee Harris does, and he's made a very successful career out of it. And, of course, when this move happened, you're just like, this is the most Jim Harbaugh move ever.
Well, another big thing is Jim Harbaugh's wanted this dude on his team since he was in high school. This is somebody that Jim Harbaugh recruited heavily coming out of high school, and it came down to either Michigan or Alabama. And he went to Alabama. So it's someone that he's known well, someone that he's wanted on his team for a long time. And also, Najee shared a great story about when Jim Harbaugh was recruiting him. Jim Harbaugh went to the homecoming game, stole the microphone, and ended up announcing the homecoming queen. And when asked, did that help, him in his recruiting pitch? And he's like, well, obviously not. I chose Alabama. So he wasn't even covering up the fact that it wasn't really something that helped him, but it's just a Jim Harbaugh quirkiness that you only really you would believe it about. That's really the only guy you could see. Man. But yeah, I mean, you talked about it. When you go into the Chargers weight room, when you go into their facility, what it says is Ted, right? They're every day. And that's something they care a ton about. We talked about that could be a detractor towards them getting Dallas Goedert. He's in the completely other situation. And I also just think that like them bringing him in and potentially bringing him in ahead or instead of J.K. Dobbins after the year that J.K. Dobbins had last year shows you what they think he can be, right?
Yeah.
Whether he'll do that or not, we'll see. But underrated as a receiver, most missed tackles for since 2021 per PFF. And also in the way that Jim Harbaugh doesn't necessarily need you to be flashy. He will take 4 yards in a cloud of dirt if you're the guy that people don't want to tackle and you can go out there and finish games at the end of the games when you have a lead.
Take
and those
people's
are two
wills
things
away.
that Najee Harris, loves to do, and something that they couldn't effectively do last year without Gus Edwards really being the Gus Edwards they thought they were getting. But they have that guy now in Najee Harris. They have a true workhorse, and we'll see kind of how they decide to complement him in the draft potentially. But we still have more awards to get into, including the biggest wild card, and I'm going to tell you why it's Mike Williams. And I also have the Heat Check Award, the player that the Chargers are betting on themselves the most with, and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
All right, David, well, it's time to get into some more awards, including the Wild Card Award, including the player the Chargers are betting on themselves the most with, which I think is very interesting given just how many guys are just the bounce back candidates, and we can put you in a better situation and get more out of you than the team before, right? That's what their specialty is, and a couple of guys who got away. But thank you, as always, for making us your first listen. If you need a second listen, make sure to check out Locked On NFL Draft so you can stay up to date with all of the best draft information from Keith Sanchez and Damian Parson, our guys at Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts from. But let's go with the biggest wild card signing, David, because when we brought this one up, it's one that I really liked, and we both had the same player that popped up in our mind first.
Oh, yeah, it's Mr. Whole Lot of Mike Williams, without a doubt, because you know what Mike Williams brings to the table, man. When he's on the football field, it's big plays galore. It's just, I'm going to go throw it up to my guy, and he is going to come down with it 80% of the time. He's not a 50-50 ball receiver. He's an 80-20 ball receiver, especially when Justin Herbert is throwing him the football. The reason why this is a wild card pick is because the chemistry is there. You know what these two have been able to do. In 2021, with Mike Williams and Justin Herbert, Mike Williams eclipsed over 1,100 receiving yards. So he has that ability. And the other reason why it's a wild card is because obviously Mike Williams, because of that play style, has had to deal with several injuries that have taken significant time away from his NFL career. So if he's on the field, you have a feeling he's going to make plays and make an impact, but you just don't know how much he's going to be able to give you.
What makes you a wild card is you could absolutely, at the end of this season, look back on it and say, this is the biggest signing in the offseason. Bigger than Mekhi Becton, bigger than Najee Harris. Like, he has the potential to do that. There's also a chance that he's not clearly as impactful at all. And that is what makes you a wild card, because it could go both directions. And I think the difference between this one and Dante Jackson is with Dante Jackson, if it does, you have guys there. Mike Williams, at least as of right now, things stand. Who else is there? You don't have that X receiver on the roster right now if it's not Mike Williams. At the same time, the last time you saw these guys together, even a small sample size of 3 games, he was on pace for a 1,400-yard season and 107 catches. So it could go either way. Last year, if you're talking about injuries, he played in all 18 games, and he played 18 games because he was traded and actually ended up playing an extra game. But in his words, he was terrible last season. So it does feel like there's a chip on the shoulder there. You also have some confidence that it's the second year back from the torn ACL, that maybe he'll look physically more like himself. But you look back at that 2024 season, you're going to see some vintage Mike Williams. It just didn't happen at the rate that you need it to. And I think that's the hard thing. But I really like this next one we have here, David, which is the player the Chargers are betting on themselves the most with. And for me, it's Benjamin St-Juste, for the main reason of, if you look this dude's PFF scores up, you're going to look at it and just say, what the hell are the Chargers doing? Like, why would anyone sign this guy, let alone the Chargers? I mean, this is a dude that's never finished in his 4 seasons higher than 117th in coverage grade overall per PFF. 117th. They're telling you he's never been a top 117 cornerback, and the Chargers signed this guy. This is what I call a Jesse Minter heat check. This is, let me show you what I can do with the guy that nobody wants. And of course, in zone, this is where he's actually a competent player at. There's reasons to look at what he's done in zone and say, okay, maybe Jesse Minter can do something with this. But this is definitely a heat check by this coaching staff and them saying, hey, you made this dude look like one of the worst corners in the league. When he comes here, there's something that actually is to work with.
Right. I mean, and there is something to work with. I mean, this guy has the measurables that every single defensive coach out there would absolutely love to have from their cornerback. 6'3". Yeah, right. Not the speed part, but from a size point of view, 6'3", 200 pounds. Like, that's definitely, some elite size that that you want and you can mix and match with. But yeah, a 29.7 man coverage grade, just absolutely abysmal. But, a serviceable 67.2 coverage grade in zone. So he's much, much better. And again, another player that kind of fits, the zone coverage looks that the Chargers like to put out there. But yeah, this is definitely Jesse Minter saying, hey, Steve Clinkscale, let's get together. Let's figure out a plan to be able to get the most out of this guy, to be able to show that we are able to take players and we are able to find what they do and emphasize that and put them in positions to excel, rebuild their value, and either, get them another contract with the Chargers or another contract with another team like they did for Christian Fulton.
Yeah, Christian Fulton or, Poona Ford or, the list goes on and on. I'm sure we'll see. Asante Samuel Jr. obviously did everything pretty much before this regime got there, which is, what could make him some money, but he's not signed yet. I think the thing is you can really only do this for the defensive side of the ball, right? Because that's the side you actually trust to maximize the players, because we saw it happen last year under Jesse Minter. You could throw Naquan Jones into this, right? Yeah. You could throw Deshaun Hand into that as well. On offense, if there was one, it'd probably be Bradley Bozeman, right? Where it's like, I know you saw what you saw, but we're going to re-sign him and he's going to be better, right? I think is what they told you with that move. But there's one more here I want to get to, and that is the one that got away. And the reason I wanted to do this one is because every free agency, you go into it with what your plan would be. You have your list of guys that you'd love to see the Chargers sign and also the guys you'd love to see them bring back. And David, who were the guys that that got away for you that you're going to keep, it's going to keep you up a little bit at night?
Well, I mean, for me, it's definitely the Devontae Adams situation. I was very, very high on Devontae Adams because it just seemed like this was a guy that, really, as far as a fit, as far as where he wanted to finish his career, as far as, productivity standpoint, all of those things matched up with what the Chargers needed and what he could provide. And, I just remember seeing the tweet get put out there, and it said that Devontae Adams was going to Los Angeles, but it was going to the Los Angeles Rams. And I was just like, oh, come on. You would do that. Just another kind of knife, and you're just twisting it just a little bit more.
For that 1 second, the dreams came true, right? And that is what it felt like. And I think that's the hard thing, because when he said he wanted to go to Los Angeles, the Chargers felt like easily the best option for him. Like, the Rams were out here trying to trade Matthew Stafford potentially, and who knows what would have happened had they done that. And he's saying he wants to go to LA. The 49ers are having to cut so many players that they never really made sense, and they just traded away Deebo Samuel. It was like, well, really, the only team he could go to would be the Chargers. And, to see him go to the Rams and you miss out on someone who's basically scheme-proof, someone that you can pay while Adam McConkey is still cheap for you, someone that really fits the timeline that you have right now with no other young receiver. Well, I mean, Quentin Johnson's kind of hard to say, but, like, outside of the Adam McConkey, you don't really have anyone in that room right now. You can draft somebody, but if you don't want them to have to come in and bear the weight of your offense on their shoulders right away, there had to be other guys to take some of that away. And I think Devontae Adams just fit all of those things. Price, need, talent, all of those things I think matched up, and that's why it sucks not to get Devontae Adams, because he felt like someone that would make a ton of sense. And then internally, it's Poona Ford.
Ford.
And both the guys on this list end up in Los Angeles. Like, to me, the Poona Ford thing sucks because I feel like the Chargers definitely wanted him back. I think Daniel Pomper's basically come out and said as much, that they wanted to get him back. I think they way underestimated what his value was going to be when they let him test free agency. Maybe they had a number they weren't willing to go. But now they're kind of just trying to attack it with numbers, with Naquan Jones, with a Deshaun Hand, and we'll see how that works out. And you have some trust they'll be able to do it. But I'm going to miss Poona, man. That one sucks.
It really does, because he was just such a fun personality to watch on the football field, and he was a great player. He really changed the way that the Chargers were able to defend against the run, made it to where they, teams couldn't just exploit the Chargers in that fashion, which they did from time to time, but they weren't able to do it from, a start to end type of situation. And Poona Ford, along with T.R. Tart, was a big part of the reason why.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the favorite part of his game that I'm going to miss the most is just his ability to sniff out a screen pass.
Yeah.
Like, that dude shut down so many screens that probably would have went for gigantic plays.
Yeah.
Had he not had the awareness and just the football IQ and just the obvious tape watching to see it coming.
Yeah.
He was so special in that. And like, the Chargers run defense wasn't elite this year, but the only reason they weren't bad to me is in big part because of what Poona Ford brought to the table. The Chargers found one of those cheap guys. They bounced back. They could have signed that guy to kind of finally have a fixture on the interior for a couple more years, and that one got away. I trust them to still draft another one. It's supposed to be a very good defensive tackle draft, so there's other ways they're going to attack it, and I trust Mike Elston, and I trust Jesse Minter to find guys that they can work with. But that one's still going to suck, because Poona was so much fun to watch. But that's going to wrap things up for today's show. The good news is you guys can tell us what you want to talk about tomorrow, because it's Fan Mail Friday, so we'll be putting a post on Locked On LA at Locked On LAC on Twitter, where you guys can hit us up with your Chargers questions. You can also call into the voicemail line at 323-524-7924 and give us your 30-second Chargers questions. There's a lot we just can't use because they're too long. So if you have a 30-second Chargers question, hit us up there. And to make sure you don't miss it, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. You can also find the show every day on our Instagram at Locked On Chargers and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page, as well as my own personal account at Dan Talk Sports on Twitter and David at DroTalkST. But make sure you guys are back here tomorrow for Fan Mail Friday. Until then, take it easy and go Bolts.